For the first time, end up in a remote village in India called Pakraketa, a village of about 75,000, and meet an eye doctor there, Dr. Kumar, who was providing eye care for the people in that region and presenting the gospel at the same time. For those of you who know India, know that it's the biggest country in the world population-wise, with almost 1.5 billion people, rapidly growing. It overtook China a couple of years ago, and there's around 640,000 villages in that country. So if you decided to visit a village each day, it would take you 1,750 years to get around the villages of India. Just an amazing number of people, and the thing that hits everyone that goes to India for the first time is the crowds of people everywhere and the chaos everywhere as people are scrabbling to make their way in the world. Dr. Kumar and his wife Nini started this work 23 years ago. It was called Eye Openers because their aim was to open physical eyes through surgery, but also open spiritual eyes through preaching the gospel. When we met 21 years ago, we didn't realise at the time that that ministry was about to founder because of lack of funds, and we were able to come alongside and cause that ministry to flourish. Both Dr. Kumar and I believe that was a God-ordained period of time we were brought together. He was caught with loan sharks. He built a building, the cost overran, and the bank wouldn't lend him any more, so he went to a loan shark and they charged 72% interest. 6% per month collected nightly. He'd run up 6 loan sharks, and the small private practice he had, 100% of what he earned from that went to the loan sharks every night. He would cry himself to sleep every night with his wife in desperation. He didn't share with us this for about 2 years after we were there. When we heard that, we came back to Australia. It was about 50,000 US that he owed, so we passed that around, paid off his debt. The loan sharks cried because he was their best customer, but it suddenly freed him up to think and expand, and the ministry grew from there. So that ministry would have stopped, and probably 500,000 people's eyes would not have at least received glasses. Tens of thousands wouldn't have had eye surgery, and 8 to 10,000 people in churches would no longer be there just as a result of that God-ordained meeting. And that's nothing special with us. It was just God brought us together without us even realising that we would meet up until that day. It managed to flourish even further once we met Imaginations Church, because Pastor Jack and the Imaginations team in Sydney and worldwide have got behind us and sponsor half of our eye surgery. Wow. The other half of our ministry is through the gospel presentation. We have 170 churches with pastors in villages and slums preaching the gospel, and we support them each week with a small stipend of about 38 Australian dollars, about $28 US a month, and that keeps that pastor in the village. The interesting thing is that there is about 400 other pastors just doing it solo that would love to join our network, and our hope is that we can accommodate them in time. This screenshot just shows our medical team with their wives, and below that our pastoral team of around 170 pastors. This was taken last month when we were visiting and had a conference for pastors. This recent trip we did last month, we had the privilege of Pastor Craig from Imaginations Melbourne come with one of his daughters, Rihanna, and one of their members of their church, Tamara. So our aim is to open physical eyes, but also open spiritual eyes through the gospel. This is a photo taken when we were there last month on our day of surgery. The top photo shows everyone sitting and milling around being processed for their operation. The photo on the bottom right shows the next day where they've come back with iPads on their eyes, waiting for that pad to be removed, their eyes assessed to get on with their life with a new vision. This lady sums up so much of our work. Her name is Narenam. She's a 68-year-old woman who used to work as a farmer, which meant working in rice fields, doing manual labour and contributing to her family's income. This lady had what was called light perception in both eyes, so she's at the bottom of what is legal for, what is available for sight. So she had her surgery. Pastor Craig was able to interview her and recorded a talk with her family the day of the surgery.
Hello, we're here at the Eye Openers Clinic here in India that our churches support globally. And here is a dear woman called Narana. This is her daughter, and this is her son over here, her grandson. Narana is approximately 68 years of age. What did Narana do when she worked?
She's a farmer.
Okay.
Working in fields.
working in the fields. And how long ago was she still doing it?
Just how many years she worked for?
Yes. And how long ago did she lose her sight?
1 year.
1 year ago. And so now I'm not saying all completely blind. The hope is that she is going to be seen by the surgeons today. They will operate on one of her very bad cataracts in the hope that putting in a new lens will mean that she will get a fresh start of being able to see again. Providing that that's successful, then in about a month's time, then the other eye will come. This is a family that loves their mother and their grandmother, and we are part of restoring dignity and sight one life at a time.
This is her the same day, where both pads on the eyes, and we made an uncommon decision to operate on both eyes. One eye had no potential for vision. If we didn't operate that eye, was going to become painful and would need to be removed. So by doing surgery on that eye, it meant she could keep the eye but have no sight, but it would be comfortable. Her other eye had potential for vision, so we decided to operate on both. The screenshot shows someone else's eye showing a very dense cataract, and hers was actually far worse than this. The next day we examined her in the eye clinic, and she could read half to 2/3 of the way down the eye chart. In Australia, that would allow her to drive a motor vehicle if she had a car licence. That was a change in her in 1 day. This is a screenshot with Pastor Craig, who's interviewing her daughter, and just her gratitude is obvious, and the lady is looking around, overtaking the world for the first time in some years.
Hey church, we met this dear woman yesterday, and today she who was blind can now see. One of her eyes she still has some difficulty with, but the other she has vision. And her daughter is so pleased and grateful, and this is just one of the ways that we make Jesus' last command our first priority.
Multiply that by 1,000, and that's what Imagination Church is doing for the Eye Openers Network. 1,000 of these operations every year. So on behalf of this lady, her family, the other 1,000 people in our team, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Dr. Baskar is the man on the left in this slide. He's the surgeon that we use to do the surgery, and he would be the best eye surgeon I've ever met. I've taken a number of ophthalmologists to India to see what he's worked, and they all agree that he's just an amazing surgeon. He does up to 100 cases in 1 day. I've watched him do 84 in one afternoon, just one after the other like a robot. In his career so far, he's done 120,000 eye operations, and the amazing thing is almost all of them get good sight back. He's just an amazing guy, a lovely Christian man, and we're so grateful to have him. To be able to see people that need surgery, we do clinics in villages where we'll examine whoever comes along. If they just need glasses, we'll give them glasses. If they need eye drops, we'll give them eye drops. If they need surgery, we'll book them for surgery, and they'll travel back to our village headquarters where we undertake the operation like we've just seen. As I mentioned, as well as opening physical eyes, our aim is to open spiritual eyes, and we've got a network of 170 pastors in villages and slum areas in our region where these men preach the gospel week in, week out, and our job is to support them both financially and through a monthly meeting where they gather together for accountability, encouragement, a stipend receiving, and for a meal. If it's combined with one of our trips over, usually the people we bring, we get to sow into their lives. And this time round, we took 2 nurses who were able to talk with them and instruct them in basic hygiene and infant care so they can be a help to the people in their village. Because usually there's no one in the village that's literate, and we've encouraged that they have enough skills so that they're the first point of call for any people that have problems in their village, whether it be medical, pastoral, or whatever. So we try and provide basic medical care so that when they're in their village they can do it. Some have taken it on better than others. It's still at a very basic level, but each time we come, we take a skill set of whoever comes with us and try and get them to impart what skills they have into our pastors, just to equip them so that they become the go-to person in their village whether you're Hindu or non-Hindu, for help and advice, and that way it allows them to share the good news in a practical way and then through leading people to Jesus. This is Pastor Craig, where he spoke for 2 days. One day just on grief and loss, so that they can help care for people in their village that have suffered grief and loss, because life is cheap and unsure and uncertain in these villages, much more so than our wealthy nations of America and Australia. While there, we met a pastor who came along in the hope of being sponsored, and that's the man on the bottom left, Pastor Timothy, who is totally blind in both eyes, with one eye removed and the other eye discarded with no potential for vision. Somehow he's been pastoring as a Christian pastor in a village with some help from another Christian man to lead him around. Our heart went out to him, so we've taken him on as a pastor, and he's one of the hundreds of pastors in the region that just want to join us. While there, we usually have an evangelistic meeting. It's getting more difficult to do that because of government persecution. We've got to be careful with open meetings now. So there's nothing to stop us worshipping and praising God. So we had a meeting of praise and worship where we were told 500 people would come. We were all able to get up and share. It was 3 hours of amazing praise, worship and sharing the gospel. However, 1,200 people came instead of 500. We made a decision that we'd feed them all at the end of the night. So there was a mad rush to buy another 500 kilos of rice to cook up curry, so everyone got a meal at the end of the evening. It was just a wonderful evening for all of us. Like life in general, Eye Openers faces challenges. There's always ongoing challenges with life, and we've never been short of them. One of the main challenges has been dealing with government, who, in a non-anti-Christian environment, want to basically shut down Christian work. Last year we managed to navigate getting our charitable status extended for 5 years. It was tried to be taken off, which meant we had to pay 40% of all donations to the government, which would have made it untenable. However, through a miraculous series of events, we've had that extended a further 5 years, and we thank God for that. The other one is succession planning. I'm 70 years old, and my daughter Phoebe, who's an eye doctor, will take over our side of the work from Australia. Dr. Kumar is also 70 years old, and he suffered from living in India with poor health for many years, and I've noticed this time he's starting to slow up. As we talk of succession planning, we don't really have a good succession model, so we're trusting God that there will be a succession plan for him. For me personally, I've had to trust God that if this ministry is to continue, it's in God's hands and not mine. And as much as I like to try and control things, we've got to leave that to God, but we're trusting that this ministry will continue and we'll find a suitable succession plan for Dr. Kumar. The third challenge has always been financial. We've often only had days of finances left. Since Imaginations Church has come alongside us, our finances have improved, but the money flows through us and out as quickly as it comes in, and that's the aim. So we never have more than a couple of months in the bank for future commitments, and that's how it should be, and we just trust God for our financial future. So with challenges, I, some years ago, got invited and asked to start Christian work in North Korea. It's a very dark country where it's illegal to preach the gospel, and I needed to be sure God called me before I did it. So I spent much waiting on God, and I had a message given to me, which was 1 Corinthians 16:9. For a great and effective door is open to me, but there are many adversaries. And so it is with much of our life. There's effective doors that are open, but there'll always be adversaries. But I believe that God is our provider and will provide in that area. The other verse that I find great help is from James 1:2-3, where James says, "Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, count it an opportunity for great joy, because you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow." I'm sure many of you are like me. I don't enjoy those trials. I prefer the easy going, but my life has had lots of trials, and it's always been the time that I've grown. So we believe that with the challenges that lie ahead, as trusting God, He'll provide a way forward for us. So in closing, I just want to thank you on behalf of all our team in India, just for the support you've given, for the encouragement. We have an open policy where if anyone wants to come and visit us, you're more than welcome, because we love to show people what we do, and everyone that we've brought has been incredibly blessed by coming, but it's been a phenomenal blessing to our team in India. So on behalf of our Eye Openers team, I thank you from the bottom of my heart and just wish you God's blessing. We were so pleased to come to Imaginations in Phoenix 2.5 years ago, at a time of transition when you were moving from your old building They bought land, and we look forward to seeing just what God will do in your town, and look forward if we get the opportunity to come and meet them in person again. So thank you.
Wow.
So I got to do that interview, and which was pretty awesome. So I asked him a few questions that stuck out to me. And first of all, I do want to point out, I think one of the problems we continue to run into, and one that we should be praying about as a church, because Obi and Caladan is facing the same thing. Who's going to take over, right? And Dr. Moore points out the fact that that he's 70 and that his time coming to an end, and he really doesn't have a succession plan, and how important it is to find somebody that will step up and fill in. And Caladan is the same thing. Like we need to be praying for God to send the right people to step in there and to do that. I think one of the things that stuck out to me that I like to point out, he calls it God's timing, but the truth is without that yes that he had to give to God so many years ago, which really I didn't realize it until this time around. I didn't realize he only started doing this like 20 years ago. He said he was 50 when he started.
Wow.
Which really kind of blew my mind. And then that he would say yes to that 50, and then to sit down and talk to him, he didn't get into it, but to talk to him about North Korea, mind blowing. Like the fact that he didn't just have a world, but he's already actually been in North Korea doing eye surgeries. And he has such tremendous favor there that he was told by them that while he's there, he can share the gospel, but only if the person asks. So he can't bring it up, but they'll do nothing to stop it if somebody is interested. Which I thought, what unbelievable favor to go into a country that's not open. And truth be told, if he was American, they wouldn't let him in. Like God is so sovereign in what he does, and being able to use it. And same thing with Japan. God using Australian youth to go into Japan, I think it's going to reap such an unbelievable harvest to be a part of that. He was going so fast. I'm trying to think of some things. One, he really, to talk to him about Dr. Kumar and the fact that that entire ministry wouldn't exist today. God would have hopefully found somebody else. But the yes that Dr. Moore said in meeting Pastor Jack in Imagination Church, and we think all those lives, 10,000, I think he said, salvations over the course of 20 years because of First World Church lifted its eyes up off of itself and decided to believe in the Great Commission and take some of that blessing and invest it, which is just absolutely incredible. And which is crazy. He didn't stop talking about this. There's that photograph. There's a photograph early in where it's Dr. Kumar when he's talking about him, and there's that huge building behind him. That's their building, which is unbelievable. 4 stories. Each floor has its own mission, from surgeries to housing for the pastors to church and to teaching, all 4, which is just absolutely amazing. And he was talking about, just to reiterate it, they trained each of those 170 pastors to basically be EMTs. So he was telling me that in India, being a pastor is like the lowest form in the social. So in a village, the pastor is like kind of the one that they treat poorly, like the Christian pastor. And so by making them EMTs in the village, they give them stature. So automatically, there's this stature to them on top of being able to serve a need. So they're training them to be EMTs, which gives them some influence. So now when people in the village come to them for whatever it might be, a broken foot, anything, like they can treat it and they can share the gospel at the same time. It's a brilliant model. And to think that it only costs $20 American dollars to fund that for every month. He said there's 400 other pastors waiting to get on the team. Like, that's not a huge number of dollars, right? That's not a huge number of dollars. And so I think that's just absolutely incredible to be a part of. And it's your daughter, right? That's how we met him, right? Thank God for that, right? What an amazing connection. He really is. I know a lot of you guys got a chance to meet him. He really is as amazing as he comes across. He's just as down to earth, easygoing. Just a humble man. and got his own pilot's license, you know, like, kind of like Pastor, Don, flying himself into crazy places, and, just a really neat thing. And we as a church at large should be praying that we'll be able to raise up another generation of men like him.
Yeah.
Because where I go, now this may not be true everywhere, but in the churches that we frequent, like other than Penrith, like when you go to churches here, you're gonna run into most everybody's old. Like, I don't mean that insulting.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the church that we really have a great relationship with in Vallejo, if you were to go on a Tuesday, which is the day they feed the homeless, there's not a single person on that team that's under the age of 65. Everybody on the team that feeds the homeless in Vallejo is over the age of 65. And my parents' church in Lake Havasu is very similar, where there's a big gap between the generation that wants to live sacrificially and the generation that taught us how to live sacrificially and by example. And so that's something I think we need to be thinking about with our culture and how we sow that into our kids, that they were created for a purpose far greater than just lifestyle. And so it was curiosity. All right, we get to hear in person in the fest.
Just some question. So I'd like, if possible, I'd like to know, like, how did you like decide that this is something that we want to invest in? But also, I don't really know the process of how we vet all the ministries that we support, the missions. So I'll just.
Great question, Scott. You know, the thing that we've been looking at now for several years is how do we keep our missions vision alive, fresh, not stuck. I don't like the feeling of being stuck in missions. I like the feeling of being able to be agile and to hear a need. And so a lot of the main thing that moves us is church planting and lead souls.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. That's the main edge of the story. And for many years, if I were to be honest with you, I had a real not good attitude. I might be standing here.
Yeah.
Or I might just sit here. Because I'm over 70 as well. I had this attitude that, see, I was a Baptist, and across the street were the Methodists. And so the Baptists were getting the gospel to everybody, and the Methodists were doing the social gospel. We'll just let them do the social gospel, and we'll do the gospel. I had that kind of, Pastor Spencer would probably call that stinking thinking. And I just sort of, to me, you know, you guys do all that stuff. We're going to plant churches, we're going to do a crusade, we're going to win the lost, we're going to win the lost. And decades ago, the Holy Spirit came upon me and really challenged me that there was another side to the soul of missions and evangelism, and it was the mercy of Jesus. Mercy, son. And in those 6 mercies of Jesus, one of those mercies is I was sick. I was not well, and you came to me, you visited me. And so most of the missions we do is what I would call organic. That's what you're doing right now in Nigeria. Come on, that's heart and soul in the house.
Yeah.
You know, that's not missionaries on a calendar.
Yeah.
Like in the old denominational days, we do support the missionary, and that, don't get me wrong, thank you, Jesus, right? But there's no real ownership in that, it's just obedience.
Yeah.
There's no real heart connection with that, unless a missionary comes to your church and something. So, the way we found Dr. Sosky was totally like it's an accident. I happened to be in the place. There was a situation. Here was the opportunity. Here was a tremendous need that I felt we could meet that no one else was meeting. And so, and now all these years with Dr. Sosky, we can't even talk about all the things that happened in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, our relationship with him. We became the church and covered him, and it's helped him and built that thing up. And so my daughter Carissa was getting married there in Cameron. And my son-in-law, Ryan, had been a part of this doctor and his wife's house ministry for years with young people.
Wow.
They're doctors. They're wealthy. They're beautiful people. They're humble.
Yeah.
But they're very successful people. But they love souls so much, and they love youth. And so my son-in-law kind of grew up in their weekly meetings in their home, following Jesus, loving Jesus. And so, of course, he came to the wedding because he's such a close friend. And it was there that I met him. It was there that I loved him. And it was there that I saw what he was doing. And I thought, and I just said, I just kind of I think I just out loud looked at him and I said, we'll pay for 1,000 a year.
Yeah.
Because we can.
Pictures.
Isn't that precious?
Yeah.
Because we can. And because we have our locations that will.
Yeah.
Our locations will fill out a faith promise. I just know it. I just know it. And we can. And I want to support people. Don't you love him?
Yeah.
You see how, and his daughter is one of the top high surgeons, not just in Australia, but my daughter Carissa, who's also a PhD, pharmacy, works in that medical field, she's very close with her. And this man's daughter is one of the leading, I think now she oversees the whole eye doctor association in Australia.
Oh, wow.
She's beautiful. She's also the pastor of the church now.
Wow.
That Carissa and her husband go to. So that, and she told me, she assured me, she will keep the, I said, will you do this for after your father finishes? She said, I absolutely will. Her and her husband pastored that church. And so in January, when they were all over there, you don't see her, but she's there. She got 3 children. She's a mom, she's a pastor, she's a brilliant doctor, she pretty much now runs their business because Dr. Moore doesn't do eye surgeries anymore.
Okay.
But he had a heart attack 7 years ago, and so she does, but he's there. He does all the other stuff. So, Scotty, does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's beautiful.
One of the things that I love about who we are is we're small enough. It's not always bad to be small enough.
Yeah.
To do something. Sometimes you're big enough to do something, and sometimes you're small enough to do something. And I can tell you, Scotty, we're small enough to have a relationship with like this scary couple right here.
Yeah.
Man, his wife, that's the scariest woman I know.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody more courageous and scary than that girl. But we love them, and they're like family to us, and we do this together. And so, I don't mind giving my money and your money.
Yeah. That's
To
awesome.
ours first, you know.
Yeah.
But when we you know, I mean, think of the things we do right here. So, and our heart's always open. And I'm always looking at my location local pastors to share with me what they're seeing, what they're feeling, what they're thinking. Because we want to bring every year these beautiful projects. Some of them we just feel like so connected to. I can't see us stopping doing those projects. Other projects, they kind of come in and come out. They're seasonal.
Yeah.
And we just have to have a sense of God and how that works. And we just have to trust Him.
Beautiful. Thank you.
And that's, I mean, ultimately, same with us, like he said, like Nigeria, that's how we find them and vet them. But I think one of the most brilliant things about it is the fact that they are small, indigenous, on the ground ministries that need the help. Instead of it being money just funneling, you know, into a huge overhead. But this is actually, we can look at it and go, this is making a difference. And during COVID, I mean, if there's anything that ever really solidified it for me was when the whole world shut down, Faith Promise did it. And so we were able to actually keep people in countries where, you know, in Caladan, their school was the only school where the teachers didn't have to beg. So all of the other schools in that area, the teachers resorted to having to beg for money because they couldn't put food on the table. Caladan was the only school in that area who was paying their teachers because Faith Promise was supporting it. And so, like, it really speaks to the family of God. You know, Dr. Saucy, during this most recent rebellion, it was this community that rescued him. Pastor Don Lee is so close that they were able to get him and his family out. I mean, he immediately turned around and went back, but like ultimately, when the rebels were marching into that city and burning that prison, it was this community that, you know, the fact that we live the lives that we live, God's blessed us to live in countries that are safe, with our eyes lifted up rather than at our own noses. We're able to go, okay, we'll still do something. We're going to do something, and that family continues and continues and continues. And even Adam, when I met with Adam the other day, we did a FaceTime call because he wanted to introduce Amir to me. This Iranian man and his wife that just got saved, and just this unbelievable set of circumstances. But one of the things that Adam was saying that Amir couldn't get over was the family of God. And not just like I'm meeting somebody who is loving me and encouraging me, and he's all the way over in Phoenix, Arizona, but for Adam to be able to go, Adam found a church, a Pentecostal church where he's at, that's Nigerians. And so he went, and because he's comfortable with Nigerians, like, oh yes, right, Gabriel and Uche, and so now he takes a meter who's Iranian, who probably is like, this is the weirdest, and so where Adam is, there's a South Korean church there in Turkey, and there's this Nigerian church, and this brand new Iranian Christian who's just like, this for Christian family is so, he's like, I'm overwhelmed by this idea that I have nobody. My wife and I moved here 4 years ago, and we have never been more lonely in our lives. And now almost instantaneously, I have this family that I feel like is family. And I think that speaks to what the body of Christ is supposed to look like on a big scale, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And so to be able to do that in India as well is really awesome, and so I appreciate that about how you guys get here this year. It's taught us a lot, and it helps us realize this is how we can effectively do something, even if we're small, which is good. Well, I just want to say, so Josh is going to come up and kind of give us a bit of the details and share with us what happens in September. But I just want to say, the word last night was awesome.
Yeah,
So much.
yeah, amen. Yeah,
And
awesome.
being
Thank you.
brilliant, it's really powerful.
My constant question is where
Okay.
If you didn't get a chance to meet his son, KB, he's awesome.
Where is Cable?
He'll probably play ping pong or something.
I'll go check on him. I'll check on him.
Yeah, right. It's having a good time. But Josh, if you want to come on up and share whatever you kind of remember, be awesome. Yeah.
can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, you can. Thank you. And do we have slides this morning? We do. Yeah, those are great. Look, again, all I can say coming here is I just feel humbled to be amongst people that are so committed. Again, Saturday morning, you could be anywhere else. You have loads of watching to do. And we are committed to missions. And I know this is your world. This is not just Saturday morning for you. This is your 365. Often it's my job when I go to churches to go and inspire people. This is the only church, the only group of churches where I come and I am also inspired and fired up for missions. And I truly mean that, I'm not saying that. So it is an honour to be amongst you. Thank you for your commitment to the cause of Christ. I know that, if you are not on the mission field, if you are passionate about mission, so much of your life can be an aching. Because it's your true longing, and you live in this between two worlds, really. There's the practical world of going to work every day, and boy, that's hard when your heart is somewhere else. And reconciling that can be difficult. But I want to thank you for what you do in sacrificing in all the ways that you do to make all this happen. What I shared in Penrith a couple of weeks ago, if you stop, all of this stops. Wow. If you just decide, I'm tired, enough, those surgeries stop. Wow.
That's good.
What happens in the Lesotho stops, and I'll tell you more about the Lesotho just now, but honestly, from the bottom of my heart, I'm inspired to be amongst you, and it's a privilege to be here. Thank you. Alright, so I'm going to take you through here is Lesotho there, a really small country on the map, completely surrounded by South Africa. It is known as the Mountain Kingdom, so we are at altitude in the mountains, and we have a king. So the Mountain Kingdom, that's where that comes from. Surrounded by South Africa. And if you were here last night, I explained the story of how we got there. I'm not going to rehash that today. But I'm going to talk a bit about what September does and what our programming is all about. So at its core, we get children off the streets and back into families. Children off the streets and back into families. Our ministry started on the streets. When we went there, we had no intention of getting every child off the street. We didn't think it was our idea at the time, our hope was we could have a school in town so that children could come to it easily and then continue their begging or their living on the street after hours. That was the height of what we thought was possible. And I look back and think we kept looking for land in town and being able to borrow someone's facility in town. But what we were led to by the Lord was something much more miraculous. So over time, we've been able to get every child off the streets and back into families. So this is not an institutional thing where we gather them up and we now have an orphanage or a boarding school, anything like that. Our aim is getting children back into families. And what we believe as Christians is that children belong in families, don't they? Yeah. It's God's design is that children need the care of a mother and a father. They need the security that comes from family. So, in getting children off the streets and back into families, we have all these programs that support that goal. First, we have Spare School. Very early on, we started the school. Not because we're educators, we are not. We started making the connection, getting children back into a home in the early days. And then we would arrange to get them into a school, pay their school fees. And all those kids, 100% was our success rate of them dropping out. That's a 100% failure rate, really. Every one of those kids would drop out of school and would return to the streets. Why? They were poor. They would turn up to school visibly poor. They were mocked for being poor. The teachers knew they'd been on the streets and would mock them and ridicule them having been on the streets. They had an unsupportive home, an unsupportive school. They were years older than their classmates. They didn't understand instruction, which in primary schools there is in English for some reason. So everything was so much of a challenge that they said this is too hard and leave, and they would return to the streets. So we said, if we hired a teacher who would love you and teach you in Sasutu, would you come personally? And by this stage we had years of relationship and trust where they said, yes, we would come to your school. So we said, well, we have one condition. You need to be sleeping at home every night. You can't come to our school from the street. So we chose 7 kids who we thought were the most likely to succeed. We just didn't open the floodgates straight away. We started with the 7 who we thought were going to make it to be examples. So then what happened was we started getting kids come to us and saying, I have an uncle that lives not too far from me. Would you be able to help me go live with him so I can come to your school? Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Or a child would turn up and we knew that they were on the street last night, we'd tuck into them. You can't do that in this school. It's for people who really want to get off the street. And we would make a tough call early on, turn it away. Which sounded really tough until they came back the next day and said, us. Good on you. So over time, the school started growing and the street started decreasing because we incentivized the right people. And we knew that staying at home was tough. These were tough families. Imagine feeling safer on the street than at home.
Wow.
Now, in reality, the street wasn't safer, but it felt safer. Yeah. But what our children carry is beyond comprehension. I've seen it all. I can't be shocked anymore, except I'm constantly shocked at what our children do. We have a young boy who was just abused horribly, to the point where he then became a perpetrator, which is really hard. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And he was hated in the village. Hated. When would see him, they would hate him. So despised was this child we had to do something because if we don't, no one else will. So we said, well, we want to be opening a school, but there's also risk. Largely. But we find a way. So we found a way to be able to have someone supervise just him who wasn't ready for the classroom, or be able to interact with others, but we found a way just to have him on site and come in. And we found Mum had long left, escaped to South Africa to get a job. How does all that make sense of the world?
Yeah.
Left. What's wrong with it? This continual longing for a mother that's alive, that never calls to think, how are you, never sends money, is existing, trying to make his way in the world. Severely mistreated to the point where he becomes a danger to others. So here it is in our school, we got in touch with the mother and she said, you know what, the first phone call I was expected to hear was that he was dead. I was just waiting for that phone call.
Yeah.
How does a kid? Just recently we discovered 5 kids who had been abandoned from baby through to ordeal.
Wow.
They lived 5. All just left. Malnourished. Horrific situation. The house that they lived in, and I'm not making this up, meter by meter, 3 feet by 3 feet. You can't lie down in that little fire that comes with it. The little girls were old enough to be a target for older men. And when we found these babies, honestly, our team walked out the door. They were malnourished and couldn't support their weight on their feet. In that situation, 10 years ago, we would not have had an answer except despair. Maybe getting on Facebook, emailing people and saying we've got an emergency, we do to help. But can I tell you what we have today? We got the team together and said, I know we're all at capacity, I know our wait lists are extremely long, but what can we do? And each program said, we can do this, we can do this. Those girls, we can sponsor them to high school level, come on site every day to collect food together, take them to dinner, and to take the lunch the next day. Our school said, we will make them so that they can come. Our childcare centre, which I'll talk about, said, we're at capacity, but we'll take them. And immediately, what was an incredibly desperate situation was no longer that. Why? The commitment of a church like this that says, we will sacrifice, we will carry this alone. See, I didn't put the email out earlier. What you have supported is enabling immediate response to the horrors that children have to carry. So this, sorry, someone close school. What we have is a school especially designed for children who have experienced trauma. They cannot survive in mainstream school. We have children who are 14, 15 who have never learned to read. And that's okay, it's a fair school. We are specifically set up for children who have never had a formal education. And we are able to take children who are traumatized and walk with them at their pace and help them to heal. We are able to teach them, we get them to pass primary school in the quickest amount of time possible. So we will usually give a child no more than 3 years. And in that time we will get them to pass primary school exam, which opens up a world to them that didn't exist before. It's a beautiful therapeutic environment where boys just become men, they become useful members of society. Our biggest hope years ago was that not that we would create the next president or politician or business leaders. I mean, from where they come from, that's not really a realistic. Our hope was that they would become a good employee, that they would be a good dad. Those things would get down. And can I tell you, now 13 years on, we have graduates from our first class that came through. That group of 7, and they'll come with their babies. These are boys that were destined to leave their families. All of them that have gone on to get married and have families that stuck it out.
That's awesome.
Incredible. Men of integrity. Good employees, reliable. They told me about girls' school. For a very long time, we were boys only. Right? Linda and I are boy dads. We know boys. What you see is what you get. And we didn't want to deal with girls. No offense to the
I don't blame you.
but, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. And the reason was on the street was boys. But there were these same issues that were impacting girls. They weren't running to the street. They were elsewhere. And when we started uncovering situations of girls really being held in domestic servitude, orphaned children are easy to exploit. A girl can be taken in because she's useful.
Wow.
Where a boy will run to the street. So we said, let's try and start a girls' school and see if this works for girls as well. The short answer is, it does work for girls as well. We do keep them very separate. When girls come in to care school, they are highly sexualized. They have lived lives that you wouldn't want to consider. And my job in the organisation now is more leadership, so I'm hearing stories and understanding what's going on. And just on a recent visit, I'll go over and I'll just walk the grounds and walk through girls' school. And I heard about this new intake that we had. And you have a picture in your mind. I walk into that classroom and all these legs just swinging on the chairs. Couldn't even touch the ground. How on earth do they carry it? And the truth is they don't. They don't carry it. Until a team can come in and says, just come with us and let us be adults. Trust us. Let us carry you through these next few years. And usually with a new intake of girls, what happens, they come in still thinking that the life they have is wonderful. Because look what I can get if I just do this. Look at these clothes that I just got. Look, I just got given a few dollars. And they encourage one another and all this is wonderful. Except by about Easter time, which is just coming up. A lot of them start to shed that identity after only a few months. And before break starts, they say, I'm not going back to that anymore. They hear the gospel. They understand that there's another life to live. So it is quite a different school to the boys' school. It's very relational. It's very just walking and just based on how they are at any one time. But this is a very special place. Very special place indeed. Our girls' school, our families. Now you've heard me talk about some horrific situations, and there are thousands of situations just like it. Often caused by dysfunctional families. And in the early years we just had this view, this simplistic view, right, we're here to help the children and these parents, they are bad. Right, in simple terms. You think victim and you think perpetrator. Until you sit with the families. And the same thing that has happened with these kids over there. And they're now having to work out how do you raise a family when they have none of the tools. So we made the step, we're going to walk with these families as well. Families that didn't want to be worked with. Our team will turn up to a home, and if it's a new family, they'll be yelled at, they'll be chased away until they turn up again and again and again and demonstrate love and say, I'm here to listen. And so we walk with families and give them very practical tools on how to treat their children, how to create a loving environment. So we have this two-pronged approach. We're working with the child and helping them heal. And over time, their behaviour improves. And they go back home and we're working with families and helping them become just a bit better of a mother or a carer. And the two are working in one go, oh, the kid's getting better. Look, you're doing great, keep going. And the child is feeling more secure and more secure. So that by the time they leave us, they're not dependent on us. They're not saying Sapir was the hero of the story. They can make enough money, which is what they always wanted. By the time they leave us, we are seeing families contribute to their high school fees or to buying their school uniform. We don't come in with a package and say, look at what Sapir's done for you. Hey, a church in America is giving you these clothes. We go, hey, your mum got this uniform. She loves me. So we work with families, and when we started, they had no interest, but now we said we're coming in for training. They will come. They are hungry. They go, we need this. Teach us more. As I was sharing last night, I said, we just want to be able to come and worship. My last trip I shared last night, we saw 80 give their life.
Wow.
Wow.
So when we talk about these two types of missions, we're seeing souls. But the journey to being able to share the gospel is a couple of years long for some of these people. That's how long it takes to earn the trust and the right to be able to share the gospel with them. It's slow. It can't turn up and preach something. It doesn't work like that. Our tutoring program. So I told you we don't have our school in the city, we don't have it in town. But we moved into what was the feeder village for children going to the street. So we went upstream.
Interesting.
So 80% of children on the street 13 years ago were from the village that we're in. 80% of the prison population from the village. So we put our school there. And when we started seeing numbers of children on the street decrease, we thought, I wonder if we could stop them going in the first place. Now, measuring prevention is very hard. How do you know you've prevented something?
Yeah.
Okay? It's not an easy thing to do. But one thing we knew, the first step to a child going to the street was them dropping out of school. So we went to all the local schools and said, as soon as you see a child stop attending school, let us know. Because primary school is free. If a child's not going to pre-primary school, there is a problem in the home. Guaranteed. So we started this program to keep children in mainstream school because they're at the right level. So after school they come to us. We help them on literacy mainly to help them catch up to where their peers are. And we also are working in their home and working with them. As of 2 years ago, the number of new children arriving on the streets from our village was zero.
Wow.
And so there are still new children arriving on the streets, just not in our village.
Wow.
So the tutoring program is amazing and it works.
Yeah.
Early childhood, as we're constantly out of the village, we were finding so many kids abandoned, neglected throughout the day. You'd go to work on one case, you'd knock on one door and you'd see some babies in there. What's going on? Where's mum? Well, she's out looking for work. And again, years ago, the simplistic view was bad mother. Right? Maybe someone would have come in, removed the child, say you're an unfit mother. But you think about it, that's a difficult choice.
Yeah.
Do I go and try and find work to feed my baby?
Yeah.
Or do I stay home with baby and stuff? What we discovered was these weren't bad women. They were alone. They had no support. We said, what if we came and just lifted the load a bit and provide free childcare for mothers in this situation? What would happen? What would happen if we could find a girl about to drop out of high school for having a baby and say, bring them to us in the day and you can go back to school? What we found was that these mothers loved their kids.
Yeah.
Right? They became really engaged mothers because the load was lifted just that little bit. They're able to go and provide, drop their child at daycare, pick them up in the afternoon. Right? And of course we work with mothers as well, which is great. The children leave our early childhood, go into mainstream school, and they are indistinguishable from the other children in their class.
Wow.
It's amazing. Right, here they are graduating, they love dress up as well, and do the graduation things. Yeah, beautiful. And what's been going on is building. This is not building for the sake of my vanity or my ego. Okay? When we get about building, it is making space for more. I've heard it said, you know, we don't build. We build because of growth or for growth. Apparently, I should have thought that through and written it down. Right. Yeah, we're not building for growth. We're building because of growth. Yeah. So we have, you know, need of space. And sometimes the limit is we don't have enough staff, so we need to, you know, grow our staff so we can bring more in. Sometimes we've got enough staff, but then we don't have room for all our programs. So we've been building pretty constantly, making room for more. This last year we built 3 new classrooms, which are beautiful spaces for our kids to learn in. Again, making room for more. So it's a good place to be. So we're always going between staff building, and we now have room for there we go. This fellow on the TV at our classroom opening.
Yeah.
TV crew came along. And then we just had people saying, hey, we saw those buildings, can we just come along and have a look? We're so proud that we have this in our village. Right. And here's the graduating class. 6 years there on the right hand side. No one would have thought they could achieve anything. The start they had in life, let me tell you, 13 years ago, if there was no superior school, there were 2 ways off the street. Death and prison. In my first year there, I said to kids, I am sick of going to your funerals. I love you, but I don't want to go to any more funerals. And I'm tired of having to be a visitor in the prison. All these ones have gone to high school. So this is our 2025 graduating class. Graduating in December, school year starts in January. They're all in high school. They've been sponsored through high school. A lot of, and all families again are contributing and making that happen. We had our first high school graduate last year, and genuinely, that is something I never thought would happen.
Yeah.
Right, I'm a big thinker, but I never thought any of our kids could actually make it. It was too big an ask.
Right.
From what I understand, she is a strong chance for university.
Wow.
Blowing them. But why? It's because of Europe. It's because of years. So when I stand in front of you, I'm saying thank you for what you've done, and with humility I'm saying please don't stop. The harvest that's in front of us is, it's exciting to me, and it's, you know, I just see the fruit can come from where we are. This is a community, this is a country that is hungry for the gospel. That understands that God loves them. And they're ready. So we're at a stage now where the team is just, you know, I'm having to sort of just manage the growth and sort of not hold them back in a bad way and say, but if we're going to do something, we're going to do it well.
Yeah.
But honestly, the fruit that's in front of us, I'm so excited by and humbled that you're committing to join us. Thank you for your yes.
That's awesome.
Amen.
The Imagination Church Phoenix, have your eyes for a second. Please, please.
Amen.
You know, Daniel, who's preaching tonight, he said the same thing that you said, which I found interesting when we were there in November. I asked him, what's the one unexpected blessing that came out of this? And he said college graduates. He said, and as you were just saying that, I thought, the Lord will do exceedingly abundantly beyond. Right? You said yes, and you thought what you were saying yes to, Pastor Alvin, probably good. You're going to have college graduates soon. And honestly, it's funny because I said something different, but she's the American in the relationship. Daniel said, the thing that blew my mind is the see kids graduate with college degrees. And I think, isn't that crazy? Because he just wanted to keep families together. And God did exceedingly beyond. And really honestly, build those campuses, like beyond what we can overthink. We're gonna do tea and coffee, and we have some things you can grab a plate, bring it back in. We got another video before we wrap up with Calabar and what Godwin's and what Pinnacle House is going to be doing this upcoming year. I want to be able to do that. But before we do, is there any other questions or anything you want to ask or say? Yes.
I do. I want to ask about ages. So what's pre-primary? What ages is that?
That's, we'll take anywhere from 6 months old up until about 5.
So then primary then, compared to where it's like kindergarten
Correct.
to,
It's grade 7 there,
okay. So then high school is,
grade 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm not sure how that makes sense.
and then the early childhood
Well, that's the
is the pre-primary. And
Yeah.
then what kind of, oh sorry,
Go
what kind
ahead.
of training do the instructors go through to participate in?
So our teachers are qualified teachers. Our tutoring tutors don't need a qualification. So our teachers are teachers. So it's a pair school, is a school. Our team of social workers, we have a mix of people who are qualified social workers and counsellors. And there are some people that just come in with the right training. What we found is that someone coming in with a qualification, I don't want to say useless, it's the wrong word. We have to train everyone in our way of doing things. So someone might come in with a teaching qualification or a social work degree, they're not ready to hit the ground straight away. So for a teacher, there's probably a 12-month flight path to then internal training before they're ready to start teaching in class by themselves. There's a lot of understanding that goes in how to deal with child trauma, how to discipline.
Yeah. Your culture. You want them to know your culture.
It is, yeah. So understanding if we're going to release somebody to the family, are they going to be represented? So, and the social workers, that's a 2-year flight path.
Wow.
That's intensive training. The amount of judgment they need
Yeah.
is
Wow. Josh.
Without being too prying, hopefully, the building is beautiful. I'm curious what a building like that costs to build. What's your monthly budget like? And does all your income come from donations, or is there any sort of governmental support there?
Yeah, good question. So government support isn't a lot. They do give something. Probably a few $1,000s a year.
Well,
For certain purchases. For us, the symbolism of that is important.
Yeah, they want to be able to take credit, I'm sure.
Yeah.
The government.
Yeah, but also, just that for us that we're not out here doing this on our own.
Yeah.
So that's important. But look, it's hard to cost the building because a lot of what we do sometimes we're getting donations for things spaced out over time. So that seems hard to be. If I was to take a guess, just over maybe $150,000.
Beautiful.
And that's a flexible space, so there's internal walls you can pull back and then it's
is that whole building you're seeing there, has that been added to over time, or what?
so the way we do it is incremental. So we never raise the whole amount of money for something and then just build. We will give it to someone and say, "Oh, can you build a slab?"
Yeah.
Because when I've got a slab, when other people come to the site, they go, "What's this?" I'm like, "Well, I'm glad you asked." We're putting classrooms and we're with the steel.
Yeah.
We just do it from the bricks.
Hmm.
Everything processing incremental. Those 2 buildings you saw there, building cost is 2017 is much. So it's slow. That's awesome. It's slow.
It's beautiful. Absolutely.
But all local materials and all
Yeah.
cheap materials individually just put together really well.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
For the girls that you have in the house, you know, they presented to the board that they stay in
Ecclesiastes says, with more knowledge comes more sorrow.
Yeah.
More understanding and sadness. I'll pray, and then we'll go out, grab some food, come back in, because we have a lot we'll not share. And come back in, and we'll get started as soon as everybody gets back in here. Thank you guys. Father, I thank you, Lord Jesus, for today, for these two incredible ministries, Father God, their unbelievable work that they're doing. Thank you, God, that you have softened the soil where they sow, Lord Jesus. I pray, Father, you will continue to provide seed and sow and bless them, God. Bless them, Lord Jesus. What an amazing testimony. I just love how Josh pointed out that when the need arose, they've grown so much that you didn't have to sit down and email. What a powerful thought. Like, God, you're providing in ways we never even see, Lord Jesus. Thank you for that, God. Bless this time with food and the fellowship in Jesus' name. Amen.
Is it just the X? To stop it? To stop it? How do I stop it? Are you sure? Are you sure?
Stop live stream?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
And